Hey, I'm FTFE. Welcome back to the channel that takes stupidity to space and just, kind of leaves it there. Thanks for joining me once again tonight. It's not necessarily a flat Earth debate. I'm talking to someone who has some specific questions about the heliocentric model, most specifically about meteors, so that'd be fun. You're wondering why the curtains are open? It's because there's been some incredible lightning tonight, and I thought we might see that. So anyway, but let's just get on with it. Quentin, welcome to the channel. How are you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Thanks very much for joining. I know it's nice and early over there in Australia.
We're living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
You wanted to talk about meteors specifically, so why don't you just take a minute, introduce yourself, give your position on the shape of the Earth and the heliocentric model, and just let us know what your questions are, and then we can just get into it.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Quentin Kidd from Australia. It's pretty cold here. I'm just holding my phone, so if it shakes, it's because I'm shivering.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily flat Earth because I think there's some holes in the in the flat Earth model, like sunsets and sunrises. But I don't go in for the heliocentric model either because I think there's so many holes in it. And I was saying about meteorites. Well, basically, with the big thing I was saying about meteorites is the meteorite showers that happen about 5 times a year at certain dates.
Right.
So you with me?
Which meteor showers are those? Which ones are you referring to? Do you mean the Perseus meteor shower that happens once a year, or?
Yeah. So the ones that happen once a year, like you've got I think it's called the Pleiades, that happens once a year around August, and then you've got about 4 of them or 5 of them, and they happen once a year. And what I don't get is the fact that we travel, through space at millions of miles an hour, and we circle the sun at thousands of miles per hour, and we also spin. And while we're doing all those 3 motions, we once a year catch up, so to speak, or the meteor showers catch up with us, and do their thing, do their meteor shower. So what happens? Do they reset themselves every year, or they got an unlimited supply of meteors and they just go off once a year at this time?
So the meteors and everything that we see in the sky all the time, they are part of our solar system. They are our entire solar system is orbiting the galaxy, and within that solar system there's individual orbits. The meteors don't catch up with us, but when we see meteors, we are moving through them. Like the Perseus meteor shower, there's a comet. There's a comet that orbits our sun, right? And just once a year, our orbit goes through the tail that is left from that comet. But the comet is so large, and there's so many billions of bits of ice and particle and dust that had come from it that the sun would probably burn out of hydrogen before that comet ran out of material to create the Perseid meteor showers. And it's the same with other meteor showers that there's belts and stuff that we move through, but there's so many of them, billions and billions of these rocks that, once a year us passing through them and knocking a few of them into our orbit and then just being destroyed by our atmosphere, it would take longer than the sun would live to exhaust that supply of meteors.
Okay. Yeah, I don't necessarily believe in the sun being hydrogen. I mean, how do we know that?
Spectroscopy is the best way. We can measure the byproducts that come from our sun. So it's hydrogen, and there's two hydrogen atoms, and they get squished together with such force that they combine and become another heavier element. In this case, helium. But there's bits left over from that, right? And we can see the bits that are left over: alpha rays, gamma rays, a visible light spectrum, heat. We can see all that stuff. And then we can know, right, those particular things that we can see with spectroscopy means that is byproducts of a nuclear reaction from this particular element.
Right.
So we have sent things there, probes and stuff to measure it. We understand how nuclear fusion would work and what would come from it, and we can measure those byproducts of fusion.
Right. Well, there's a few problems I have with the heliocentric model too. Like that we've sent things up into space. I don't think we can escape into space. I don't think we can do that.
Oh, there's a big surprise.
And like you've got the propulsion. So to propel something, it has to propel against a friction. But space is a vacuum. So what does the starship?
Right. Okay.
Propel
That's pretty simple. So. A rocket has a combustion chamber, okay? And when the fuel inside that combustion chamber combusts, it expands and causes pressure. And when you've got, one side of it is open, all the exhaust is coming out, but the other side is a solid thing. So that expansion of the gas inside the combustion chamber is causing a pressure on the inside of the combustion chamber, which is what is making the rocket move forward. And then, because of Newton's first law of motion, you have stuff come out the other side. You don't need something to push off. That's just one way of propulsion. The way that a rocket works is by using Newton's laws of motion, knowing that if something has been made to move, unless there's something to stop it, then it's going to keep going. Rockets don't push off of the air. They push off of themselves by creating an explosion inside the combustion chamber.
No, fair enough.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I just I just don't think it's happening because of the so many flaws. Like there was one of the astronauts who went to the moon didn't even know about the Van Allen belts. And
which astronaut didn't know about them?
No, I can't remember his name. It was one of them, one of the later ones. I wish I could remember his name, but he said that what are the Van Allen belts, and then he got told. He goes, oh well, we must have gone through them, and there's just so many things that with the moon landing that fall short. So why haven't they gone back there? And then you've got the things about the James Webb telescope. Space telescope, which is seeing galaxies that are millions and millions and billions of miles away for the first time, but they still can't zoom in on the moon landings on the moon.
Right. Okay. So that was quite a lot.
Yeah. Sorry.
What was the first thing you said was so the Van Allen radiation belts. To be honest, the astronauts that are there don't need to know anything about it. Some astronauts are there for a specific job, payload specialists. There might be a bit of equipment that needs somebody, so they train them to go to space. They don't need to know about what the rocket's going through. They've got very little to do with that. But then again, the Van Allen radiation belts also aren't really a problem. Most of it is alpha rays, which can be blocked with a bit of paper, and they spend so little time in it that it's not going to do them any damage. The next thing you said was, why haven't we gone back there? Simple, political and financial reasons. After 1972, they stopped funding NASA a lot. They took a lot of the funding away. They'd been to the moon a bunch of times. There was nothing new they could really do at that time. So the funding for that in particular dried up, and they decided to focus on things like doing low Earth orbit with the ISS and learning more about being in space. But they are going back. You've got the Artemis missions, which are starting to go ahead now with the pre-launch rockets and everything. That is not only going back to the moon, but is planning a manned base there within the next few years. So, you know,
Yeah.
now that there's private enterprise and stuff like SpaceX and everything that can help with this, like by the time NASA send people to the moon, SpaceX and other companies will have basically already set up the, the stuff there for them.
Yeah, well, the reason I don't believe they're going back there, I don't think that'll happen. They'll make some excuse.
Of course! The other thing you said about was why, with the James Webb Telescope, how can we see galaxies that are billions of light years away, but not see the flag on the moon? Well, it's all to do with what you can focus on. The James Webb Telescope couldn't even focus on the moon. It's too close, But they have seen the landing site. China's orbiters around the moon have taken pictures of it and shown where the landing site was. It's just there's no real cameras that exist on Earth that have the resolution to be able to look at the moon. The James Webb Telescope is designed to look billions of years into the past.
Yeah, well, there's a gap there. So you've got the James Webb can see, further than anything can ever see before, but there's nothing that can zoom in on the moon landings. It's like
like I said, there's very different types of cameras. Earthbound technology, they don't have cameras that could zoom into something that small. The angular resolution just wouldn't be possible, The James Webb Telescope is designed to look into the distance and see certain wavelengths of light. It's not just a normal camera with really good zoom. There's a lot. It's a scientific instrumentation that takes images in very different ways to just, snapping a picture. But again, there has been images of the landing site being given to us by China.
Yeah, well, I've looked into them as well, and they don't like zoom in very far at all. They're quite a way off. It's like the satellites that are circular, that are orbiting the Earth can zoom right into a letterbox or a car in the driveway.
No, not really.
On Google Earth, Google Earth you can
Google
zoom
Earth
in on.
Google Earth isn't just a bunch of satellites looking. It's
No, they have drones.
If you're looking at Google Earth, when you're looking really out far, that's a satellite image, and then as it zooms in, that would be like high altitude aircraft images and stuff. It's not just taken from satellites in space all the way. That's not how Google Earth works. No. But there isn't like many black satellites that can just watch people from space. That's not really things that are
how they do
exist.
Google Moon then?
Again, they've taken images of the moon. They've scanned it. They know what's there, and then you can represent that in a 3D model. It's not like a Google Moon isn't a live image. It's information that has been put together.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you can Google, because of the height, you could, like a drone or a plane, whatever they use on Earth, you can zoom into, something like a letterbox on Google Earth, but on Google Moon, they can't do that sort of thing.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
And then you've got also Google
again,
Mars.
Google Earth and Google Moon aren't live satellites showing you an image as you're zooming in. It's a bunch of pictures that have been taken and put together. All the stuff from Google Moon is from the satellites that have been orbiting the moon and doing radar scans of the surface of the moon, and then it's represented in a computer model. That's not live images.
Yeah.
You just don't get it, do you? You don't.
Well, that actually brings up another problem I have with the heliocentric model is that that Mercury and Venus, and I've modelled this a number of times, and I don't want it to be so, but Mercury and Venus, you shouldn't be able to see from night.
Yes, you should. There's no
because
problem with
you're
that
looking
at all.
towards the sun.
Yeah, but the universe is three-dimensional.
Well, their orbit
right?
is close to the sun.
Right. This is very this is a very easy thing. I can just draw this out for you.
All right.
So let's say we've got the sun here, and then we've got one orbit. We've got Mercury over here. Another orbit. We've got Venus over here. We've got another orbit. And we've got Earth over here. Right. So let me zoom in so you can see this. So this is the sun here, okay? And you got 1 planet, 2 planet, 3 planet. So what you're saying is that because, you know, nighttime is looking this way, we shouldn't be able to see these things at night, right?
Yeah. And you can model that in a 3D.
Here's the thing, right? From that position on Earth, looking straight up, you're still going to be able to see these things. You can only ever see Mercury and Venus when its sun's just going down or when it's just coming up. And if you're here on Earth, just when it's becoming night or just when it's becoming day, because space is 3D, you'll be able to see Mercury and Venus when for you it is just becoming night. If you're over here, right, and it's the middle of the night, of course, you're never going to be able to see Mercury or Venus. But if you're right here, as it's becoming night or day, Mercury and Venus appear very low to the horizon, exactly as it shows. I can show it even better with a 3D model I've got on my computer, but that should make it easy enough to understand why when it's just becoming nighttime or when the sun's just coming up, you can see Mercury and Venus when they're in the right place in their orbit. Does that make sense?
All right, well, I've modeled it. Yeah, I've modeled it 3D and it doesn't work.
I mean, I've just modeled it there for you and it works perfectly.
In 2D, yeah. But
yeah, there's no reason that wouldn't work in 3D. In fact, 3D makes it even easier to understand. The fact is that these things will be low on the horizon at night.
Yeah, but you're still looking towards the sun.
Well, duh.
Yeah, of course you are. You're looking towards the sun. That's, you know, you can see the sun setting or just rising. And it's going to appear very low on the horizon, close to where the sun is rising or setting. Exactly. So if you're looking over here, right, for you, just here, it's sunset, right? So the sun is just setting along this line, right? But these things here are going to be very low to the horizon as the sun sets. Obviously, that line should be straight.
The problem you've got with that is, now I understand what you're saying. I've tried it 3D, and I've drawn it out in 2D. The problem with that is you're still looking towards the night side of Mercury and the night side of Venus.
That's fine. You're still able to see them in the sky because light's reflecting off of them, right? So there's going to be light coming from the sun, right? So there's going to be light coming from the sun, right? So this is the path of light. So it's coming from the sun, it's bouncing off of Mercury, and then it's coming all the way to the person on the horizon. Yeah,
but it's not bouncing off the whole sphere of Mercury.
No, and you don't see the entirety of. You see it as a phase. If you actually get cameras or telescopes and zoom in, you don't see the entire thing. You see this portion of it, that the light is reflecting off.
No, but you see a whole sphere.
You don't. That's the thing. You actually don't. What you see is a star, right? A twinkle. But if you zoom in on it, it's a phase of Mercury. You don't see an entire sphere of Mercury.
Yeah, well, that's interesting that you should bring the sparkle up, because that's another thing with the heliocentric model that
you don't understand.
I think it goes wrong. Is that so? For example, Mars, with the naked eye, shines in the night sky. It shines and sparkles like a star. But then when they're close to it, it loses its luster.
Well, that sparkle is just the light coming through our atmosphere. That's it. It's not really sparkling.
Yeah.
It's just the disturbances in our atmosphere, refraction, pollution, clouds, whatever. It makes it look like it's not really sparkling.
Yeah, but there are pictures apparently from space of Mars where there's no atmosphere and it's sparkling like a sun.
I would have to ask for that because I thoroughly disagree that picture would exist.
Okay, and then we have the okay. So one of the reasons I don't subscribe to the heliocentric model is the fact that no one has even though the moon landings, I believe, are a hoax, no one has, no other space agency has tried to disprove them. And people say, well, then there's millions of people who, well, not millions, but thousands of people who have kept the secret. But when you look into it, there really seems to be that they're all in on it anyway. Like all the space agencies are in on it. Another really a good example that I doubt is you have is it Mike McCandless, or you have one guy and they've only done it once. They've got and you can get video of it or time lapse video of it, and the time lapse video shows an astronaut shooting off the shuttle using the man. It should be human, but they always use man rather than human. The man maneuvering unit from the space shuttle. So the shuttle to orbit has to go at above 17,000 miles per hour, right?
From the shuttle.
About that, isn't it?
Sorry, would say that again?
For the space shuttle to orbit, it's got to go beyond above 17,000 miles per hour. Is that right?
No, 17,000 miles an hour is just the orbital speed of the ISS.
Oh, okay. So the shuttle has to go a similar speed to orbit.
Well, if it was to match the ISS's orbit, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it has to go a phenomenal speed to orbit anyway.
Yeah, it has to have a relative speed to the ground below them of about 17,000 miles an hour. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going that fast, and then it's like you have a motorcycle on the back of a ute, and the ute's going 80 miles per hour, and it launches off the back of the ute, the motorbike. Then to catch back up to the ute, it would have to go faster than the ute. Right? Are you following?
Why would it lose the if the shuttle's going the same speed as the ISS? Why would it all of a sudden not be going as fast as the ISS? What's stopping it going the same speed?
No, it has to go the same speed to orbit. I'm saying that this guy used the manned maneuvering unit to launch himself away from the shuttle into space, and there's the issues with it are on the video. There's no stars.
Sorry, are you talking about that shot of the astronaut just kind of floating there on his own?
Yeah. Now,
yeah, I mean that astronaut was moving the same speed as as whatever he was outside of. Here's an important thing about motion: is that all motion's relative. That there is no absolute motion. When that astronaut was attached to the thing that was going really fast, once he then detached, he still kept that momentum. And then all he had to do was change his relative distance away, whilst conservation of momentum dealt with the rest. That's kind of a very basic law of physics, is that momentum is always conserved. There's no reason he would have changed his speed relative to the thing that he was on. Yeah,
well, that's the same thing as the bicycle motorbike going off the ute. It'll still be going. There'll be a relative speed it'll be going compared to the ute, but there's also a relative speed that he'll be going when he left the ute.
That motorbike going off the back of the pickup truck is also going to then hit the ground and have friction to deal with. It's going to have the atmosphere that's causing friction. If that pickup truck was in a completely frictionless environment in 3D space and the bike moved off the back of it, it's just going to move the same speed. It's not going to fall behind and then have to then catch up again. What we understand right now a bit about the Big Bang is what all the evidence we have lets us understand. But in years to come, there may be a better explanation. Maybe a different way of describing what happened, more evidence that suggests a different thing. We don't know. But at the moment, all the evidence suggests that this is the case. We can see that the Big Bang happened because we can see remnants of the recombination event.
Yeah. So how did they know before they were exploring space? How can they tell from the ground the position of the planets? Like that Mercury is closer to the sun and Venus is closer to the sun.
parallax,
Mars.
observing the way that they orbit, how fast the orbit is, the size of the planet. Like I said, parallax measurements are a big thing. For instance, Neptune. Do you know how Neptune was discovered? This is the good one.
No.
Right, so they were watching the planets for ages, and they were watching the orbit of Uranus, right? And they noticed that when Uranus got to a certain point in its orbit, it did something weird, which wasn't explained by Newton's law of gravitation and Kepler's planetary motion laws and everything. It didn't quite fit, right? Except it did.
Why? What did it do?
What they did was they did a bit of maths, and they figured out that if there was another massive body exerting a gravitational force on Uranus that was in this particular spot, then that would explain this weird movement of Uranus during its orbit, right? So they did the maths. They said, okay, so there should be something that's about this big, and we should be able to see it here. And then they looked there, and they found Neptune. Because of our understanding of the orbits and how gravitational attraction works, So these
and the
things
sizes, like you were saying, the size, it's not that I'm incredulous. I'm saying that, really, how can they see how big Jupiter is compared to Earth from, way back in the day?
Again, by parallax measurements, comparing it to the movement of distant stars. If you because all of the stars are because all of the stars are so far away, for most practical uses, they can be considered the same distance away. So for stuff within our solar system, we can use that as a basis for parallax to figure out how far away things are and how big they are based on that. And then we can do things like look at the orbits of them and how they interact with other things around them, and do the maths about gravity, which can also give us an idea of how big they are. Back in the day, thousands of years ago, when the Greeks were doing their initial observations and stuff, the majority of it was assumptions and guesses, right? But assumptions and guesses that over time have been verified to be correct. Back in the thousands of years ago, there probably wasn't a very accurate way to determine the size of a planet, but now we can verify that their guesses were pretty much right.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, how do they do the first parallax measurement?
Honestly, let's say Venus, for instance. They basically assumed Venus was the same size as Earth, right? And they did a lot of their calculations based on that assumption. Luckily, that assumption's turned out to be pretty much accurate. Venus is called Earth's twin because it's practically the same, with mass and size, right? But one of the first things they did was make an assumption, which seemed like a pretty good assumption to them at the time, based on all their observations, and they based a lot of things on that. But over the centuries, we've been able to verify these assumptions with better observations and experiments and stuff. So, yeah, I feel like I've answered everything that that you've got questions about, really. And again, I don't want to sound rude when I'm saying it, but so much of this is very basic knowledge that you could find with a few Google searches. I'm not this isn't knowledge that has taken me, decades of study to get. This is just kind of general knowledge that I'm giving you.
Yeah. Well, I get that. The problem that I have is that I think that basically what's happened is we're in a religion of space and evolution, and that's because they're hiding our true selves from ourselves.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I disagree with that completely. There's
they're
nothing
hiding,
religious
I'm
about
not religious
space.
in that way, but they're hiding spirituality from us.
I don't think anyone's hiding spirituality. If you want to be spiritual, that's all you. I don't think anyone's attempting to hide that from anybody. But the fact is that spirituality is irrelevant to scientific advancement.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. If you want to be spiritual and you want to have that about yourself, you know, have at you, but it doesn't affect science in any way.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But the fact of the matter is, you know, I think that we're losing our spirituality, and it's been purposely done. And this is a big conspiracy to hide the fact that we're
What's
we
a
live
conspiracy?
on a spiritual realm as well as the material realm.
Spiritual is a personal thing. You know,
sorry?
Earth. Spiritual is a personal thing. Earth is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a physical place that we exist, and spirituality doesn't change that empirical fact. Spirituality is a personal thing and has no bearing on our knowledge of the universe.
Yeah.
I just don't think anyone's
All right.
trying to hide anything.
No, it's all right. It's been nice chatting with you.
Okay. I'm just gonna let me see if I've got any questions from the audience for you before you go.
Okay.
First, one sec. No, none of the questions really seem to be for you, so it's fine. Quentin, if you're happy to go, I've enjoyed the conversation. If you'd like any further information about anything I've said, please feel free to contact me, and I can send you scientific papers, studies, experiments, anything that you want. Never believe what you're told. Always verify for yourself. But also don't be incredulous just for the sake of being incredulous, because that stops you having an open mind. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, not really. I'm still, you know, I mean, there's the Mercury and Venus thing that we talked about.
I showed you how it's
I'm
possible.
still not convinced on that, and I'm not convinced that we're on Mars in any shape or form. And anyway, there's just so many questions still that, you know, and you answer some of them, but I've got oodles of questions.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, Quentin. How about
we didn't hit on the dinosaurs either.
Okay, so how about
And how we've got
organize your thoughts. Write down a list of. How about organize your thoughts? Write down a list of things that you think we could have a further conversation about, and you're more than welcome to come back. I'll talk about dinosaurs or whatever you want.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Quentin. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
See you later.
Bye. Have a beautiful time.
Can anybody else say personal incredulity?
Personal incredulity.
Yeah, that's what that's all about. I'm pretty sure that people normally get paid for teaching basic shit like this, right? This is the job of teachers, yeah? Not some Scottish disabled dude sitting in his front room. Fight the flock, 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 fight